Would you like to do roll call for us, please? Yes, please turn on. Oh, you just push the button in the middle. Oh, no, Jill,
Jill.
not Joe.
Not Joe. It did sound like.
Just make sure your microphone's on.
Joe, we'd like you to run everything. You wouldn't mind?
It's a little initiation we do.
Over, it's all you.
Okay.
Commissioner Lloyd Graycheck is absent. Commissioner Laura Greenlee-Carp,
Here.
Commissioner Joseph Fromm,
Here.
Commissioner Ingrid Kohler,
Here.
Commissioner Sue Springborn,
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Zaradka,
Here.
Commissioner Artie Alvarez,
Here.
and Councilmember Cassidy Schwer.
Here.
Okay. We need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Motion. Done? Is that how I end it?
Now vote.
Oh, okay, now we need to vote on adopting the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Sorry.
Or nay.
Or nay. Okay, let's try again. I need a motion to approve the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Great, now we're gonna take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Great. Anybody from the public? Okay, anybody on Zoom? Okay. Public hearings, we don't have any scheduled. Commission business, financial update.
Well, good evening, Park Commission. My name is Dan Winnick. I'm the Finance Director for the City of North St. Paul. I was asked to come tonight to kind of answer any questions that you may have that are related to financial regarding parks and recreation. And so I've put together just a quick little PowerPoint presentation for you. It's very high level, and then really would like to get into some questions and answers that are specific or that are on your mind. And hopefully I'll be able to answer them tonight. If I can't answer them tonight, I certainly will get back to you as soon as possible. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So first of all, I want to thank you all. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here tonight to present to you and hopefully answer your questions. And more importantly, I want to thank you for the time that you are serving on this park commission. The park program in this city is invaluable. It is something that attracts people to this city, and we have a very, very good park system. And the work that you do is totally invaluable to our community, and it's really what makes it a community. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you for your time and your participation onto this committee. Tonight we'll kind of go over the overview of spending that is set in the city, and most of it, and I didn't do all the statutory references or the city's policies, but I certainly can give you references if you so desire to have those. I'm also going to give you an overview of the budget process. I'm going to give you the park and recreation funding sources, kind of show you how the 22 budget came out, and then kind of some 2023 budget information, and then open it up for some questions and discussion. Next slide, please. So the overview of spending, and I just kind of put it in bullets, and if we need any time for some clarification onto this, but there's kind of some overall general rules, and it's that all expenditures must be for a public purpose, and that's by statute. All expenditures must be made by a city employee. That's also by statute and by city policy. all expenditures must be approved by a department head, and that's a city policy rule. All expenditures must follow the city's purchasing policy. All expenditures must be from an approved budget. All budgets must be approved by the city council, and all amendments to the budget must be approved to the city council. So what that last one really means is that a budget can be approved, and it's not set in stone. There can be adjustments and changes that happen in a budget. They're taken through the form of an amendment. So in other words, you would have to increase appropriations. That's the spending side, and you need to identify some sort of revenue side to it to offset that, and/or using it from a fund balance. But that action would have to be taken in front of City Council and approved. So again, all budgets at the end of the day, all money that's spent has to come from an approved budget. Next. That's okay. Kind of a quick overview of the budget process. The budget process starts in May and June, so we're currently pulling all of the forms together. The budget includes the capital improvement program, and it also includes the operating budgets that the city approves. So we're developing those forms now, and we'll be starting to get input from the department heads, and we'll also engage the commissions. I know I've been here almost 2 years. I know we haven't really done a very good job of engaging the commissions. So this won't be the only time that you see me. You will see me coming here again and giving you a form and kind of assisting you in how to fill it out. But it's really to put together what your wants or your needs are for the upcoming budget year of 2024. That isn't finalized when you give it to me. I'll incorporate that within the budget, and then we have budget hearings with the city council. In September, we certify the maximum levy that the city is going to hold. The levy at that point in time, at the end of September, cannot go up. It can go down. And there is a truth and taxation hearing that must be held towards the end of November, beginning of December, and then the ultimate approval of the budgets has to be done by and certified to Ramsey County by the end of December. So that's kind of like a high level of what occurs through the budget process. But yes, your voice will be included in the budget process. If it's not me, I'll have a representative from the finance department to be here. More than likely, it'll be me. And I'll be working with Jill and Brandy to get your input to make sure that your voice is heard in the budget process. Parks and Recreation funding, on a very high level, for parks, there's really 4 funds that have money that either receive revenue or expend expenses out of that are related to parks. Some you may not be totally, kind of in your charter to be overlooking, because some of it's, kind of the operation or more of the operational maintenance type expenses that are included in the general fund. And really it kind of falls underneath the domain of the Public Works Department. But the first fund that is there is the Park Dedication Fund. That is a capital fund, and by statute, the funds must be used only for the acquisition and development or improvement of parks, recreational facilities, playgrounds, trails, wetlands, or open space based on the approved park systems plan, and cash payments must not be used for ongoing operation or maintenance of parks, recreational facilities, playgrounds, trails, wetlands, or open space. So it must be used for capital. The other fund that is really underneath the control of parks is the park fund itself. It's a capital fund. It receives the majority of its revenue, one from local government aid, The past precedence has been that $100,000 of local government aid is deposited into the park fund. In addition to that, all of the revenue that comes from any of the rental of any of the park facilities goes into the park fund. There are no expenses related to any of that rental that is taken from that park fund. The expenses that are related to parks is either taken from the operating fund or the operating fund that's in the general fund. In the general fund, there's a division that's called parks, and or there is a building maintenance fund that funds are taken for. And so most of the cleaning of the facilities, especially after events or on a monthly basis, are taken from the building maintenance fund. And what you'll see in the general fund are for, I think it's, and I'll get it wrong, there's one of the, there was, it'll come to me. There's like $6,500 that is for the maintenance of a park. You've asked questions on that. They thought it was $7,000.
The 100,000 that comes in, 65,000 that pays for the building.
No, that's a different part to it. Well, anyways, I think it's Southwood Park, is it?
Oh, the 6,500 budget.
Yeah, that would be located in the general fund, underneath parks, incorporated into that. And the general fund, parks has a lot of other funding that is included in there. In the next slide.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Pardon?
Can I ask a clarifying
Oh,
question?
absolutely.
When you're talking about the operating funds, general fund, building maintenance, you're referring to the parks general fund under the overall city budget?
Yep, yes, correct. Absolutely, yep. And and you'll see here that I'll touch base a little bit more on that, and if you have any questions, then, because it'll be easier to understand. Very good question. So the Park Dedication Fund at the end of 2022 had a fund balance of approximately $245,000. The fund balance for the Park Fund was approximately $555,000. The revenue from park rentals last year amounted to approximately $74,000. And then the operating budget that was in the building maintenance fund, the total expenses was approximately $66,000 last year. And if you remember, $66,000, you collected revenue of $74,000. So, it's covering the expenses, even though the expenses aren't shown in that fund to offset it. And then the operating budget for the general fund, total expenses were $420,000. A lot of that is for public works staff, for mowing, a lot of upkeep for the facilities. That's where a lot of smaller dollar amounts that do not require bonding or that are not coming out of the park fund or the park dedication fund, but they're on the capital improvement plan, are funded in that portion of the budget. Any questions? Did I confuse even more? No? You've got perfect. Thank you. Next one, on the 2023 budget, the Park Dedication Fund has no budget that's been approved. There hasn't been, a request that was put together for something, for a park improvement that was going to be coming out of the Park Dedication Funds. In the Park Fund itself, there was the request. I think the biggest part of it was for Housy Park, and there were, I think, some other costs that were included in the CIP that were identified from the Park Fund. So that budget was approved by City Council for $332,000. The operating budget and that building maintenance have taken care of the park facilities, and it's really more of the cleaning and so forth of the facility, not the grounds. Is approximately $81,000 that was approved. And then in the general fund, the parks budget increased to $634,000 because there was a number of CIP projects that did not reach the threshold of being bonded or so forth. And so that's why the budget increased to approximately $635,000.
CIP, capital improvement.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, yep. And so that's kind of just a high level of where things are at. We can go into more detail, but I really want to make sure that this has been helpful, that if you have questions, you know, that give you time to ask those questions and that I can answer those.
I just have a question. Can you help me understand the difference between the Park Dedication Fund and the Park Fund?
Yeah, the Park Dedication Fund, when a new development comes into the city, or, there's a park dedication fee, and it really is developed because there needs to be some sort of parkland that's
Sure.
associated.
Yep.
If there's not enough land, so they charge a park dedication fee, and that's where
Got
gets
it. That's what
and
that
by
is.
statute, it has to be deposited into its own separate fund.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is, yep.
And it must be spent on capital improvements.
Yep, yes.
And isn't that like the Park Fund too?
Yes.
They
that's-
have to be spent on the same types of things?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They can't be for your ongoing operational and maintenance of
Right.
it, absolutely.
Okay.
Can I clarify something though?
Sure.
Park Dedication Fund is for developing new parks. It's not for improving current parks.
There's a kind of a gray area in statute onto that. You know, I think in certain ways that really was the intention of the statute, but many municipalities kind of cross that line. So so if you're just replacing an in-kind, then I would say no, it really shouldn't be. But if you're kind of like changing its purpose or enhancing, I would say then it would be allowed to be used underneath the park dedication, if that makes sense, for kind of a clarification, yeah.
So this year, there's no budget for park dedication fund, but last year there was. What park dedication thing happened last year that there was that budget for it? If it wasn't for a new,
There wasn't a budget the past year. I was showing the fund balance
oh, okay.
of what's in the fund balance that's available. So in other words, if you had a project that was something that was new and improved, you certainly can, through the amendment process, even during the middle of the year, you could get city council approval on that.
When you showed the 2023 budget information, that was just a balance. That's not what was,
I think it's- we haven't spent any money or,
Because we haven't
we haven't
done
done anything.
Yeah.
right, but then, but previous page.
Yes, if you want to go back to one slide, please, for the 22, if you can go back to the.
I was just wondering,
So I'm just showing the fund
that was
balance
just the
of those
balance.
two.
That
Yeah,
wasn't
just
what
the
was
bal-
spent.
Just
it
the
was
balance,
just-
yep,
Okay,
yep,
got it.
yep.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Has there been conversations about the park fund contributing to the operating budget costs for the overall park maintenance? Do you follow the question that I'm asking?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Has there been discussion onto
Or
it?
is there a future plan to do that?
I don't, well, I can't answer if there isn't a plan being developed by finance to do that, or a recommendation to do that, and here's the way I look at it, and, but ultimately it's city council's decision. I mean, but the way I look at it is, if you look at your capital improvement plan, your park dedication fund and your park fund cannot afford the plan. So somewhere, someplace, money has to be given for that. And some of the bigger projects that are there are going to require bonding. The bonding will be coming out of general fund. What was done with like the Casey Park, there was a part of that bond that is being paid for by the park fund, but in essence, it's been offset by giving LGA money. So you're not touching the park rental fees. So,
LGA stands?
oh, I'm sorry, local government aid.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So there's an approximate debt payment, about $65,000 that's required. Out of the local government aid, you're getting $100,000. So you're netting a positive $35,000 from that. Now, that may change because local government aid is something that they've talked about at the state level for years upon years, that they were going to sunset that. I think right now, it hasn't passed yet, right now in the current legislation, it looks like the city may get a slight increase. And I think part of that's just because of the budget surplus that's out there. But there's been talk for years upon years of doing away with local government aid. So that part of it could go away. The rest of it, I personally, for mine, would be recommending that the city does not do that in offsetting the costs out of the park fund. And again, both the park fund and the park dedication fund, it wouldn't come out of that because they're both capital funds. Well, what end up doing is that the revenues wouldn't go into the park fund. They would end up going to more of an operational fund and then offset by the expenses. But again, I don't recommend doing that.
Can you remind us, I know there was a set amount of time on how many years we were paying that 65,000, because we had the 100,000 before we ever built that building. Do you know how many years we have left on that payment plan?
I don't off the top, but I certainly can get that
I
information.
feel like
and
it was
pass on to Jill.
2016. I just wanted to see if we're getting close to 10 years, which I think is it would just be good to know if we are planning those long-term projects, if we're getting that 100,000 back a year versus 35, that would allow us to really put more money into that. And that would be helpful.
I certainly will get that information.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
I will, Jill, I will forward that information to you.
Are there any other questions?
What was the reason you were asking if the park fund could be used for the maintenance part? I didn't understand that.
I basically, okay, simplified version. The costs that are, when you manage a budget like this, they usually require that the expenses that are coming out come out of the same account as the revenues coming in. And right now, the city budget, general fund budget, is paying for maintenance and stuff of park buildings. And we are just netting park rental fees. So park rental fees are not being,
Match with
Given-
the expenses.
yes. And so my question was, is that something that the city is going to possibly ask us to do? Because that would have a significant impact on the revenue that we make for our budget, thus impacting our long-term plan.
Actually, Laura, that's very insightful.
I
It's like, oh my gosh.
I have managed public funds in my day job, so I have a little bit of insider knowledge on that, but yeah.
And technically, there's nothing that requires that to happen because it is recorded somewhere else.
It's all one
But
big,
yeah, but normally, yes, you match your revenues and expenses in the same type of fund. But yeah,
yeah. I don't want to lose all of the park rental revenue, so
yeah, because then you know, in
then we just sit
in essence,
stagnant.
exactly, except for the differentiation that you have between the local government aid and the bond payment. Yeah,
Yep.
until the bond payment sunsets, and then you have
Right.
more. Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of it, you know, the city is still required to do something with the parks. So it's going to be coming out of general fund one way or the other
Yep.
in time. So
Great.
This was very helpful.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was very beneficial. And if it's possible, is this something we could do annually? Just so that we have a continued idea of what this looks like.
And the other part that I was hoping Dad could talk to is how the event funds and the park funds, if they're the same or different, or how those are functioning also.
can you give me a little clarification on event fund?
Where the money is coming for like the music in the parks, the Art Fest, food truck night.
Yeah, so for the budget year 2023, we moved a small amount into the community event fund. It's a separate fund to be used by for some of the events that were identified. And Jill, you had supplied that information to me to be incorporated into the budget. So, you know, the fund, the event fund also takes care of the revenue and expenses for the car show. You know, there's an agreement for the car show that the city provides some services, but there's a value that we get back for reimbursement of some of our services. And so that's, the community event fund is really for just what it says, community events. So that's kind of where that money is. And again, when we go through the budget process for 2024, there may be a desire or a need to increase some of those funds, and then we'll end up having to look at that. There is a small amount of fund balance that's in there that could last a little while, depending on the requests. Once we get to the point where the fund balance is exhausted, if we're not, you know, getting revenue in, then we'll have to look at some sort of other, you know, resource to be able to keep that fund positive. So
Jill, if we were asking for more money for the Autumn Art Festival, it wouldn't come out of the park fund, it would come out of this event fund? Okay.
But we could you said there was an amendment process. And is that something we still have an option to access at, like, could we propose or request an amendment to take park fund balance money and put it into the community event budget line?
and I would say no.
Okay.
Here's the reason why I say no, because we just went through park fund and the park dedication fund really are capital funds, and they should be used for capital type related funds.
Got
So
it.
now so you would be requiring a transfer from the park fund
Yep.
for something that's a non-capital item. I would be against it. I'll just tell you my position
Got it.
right out. However, you happen to have, and I don't even know who the individual's name is, but you happen to have a city council member that sits on this that probably would support and kind of push for allocating more money. So when that request would come to me, the first thing, part of my responsibility is trying to find a funding source for it if one hasn't been identified. So I probably would look at the fund balance, first of all, in the community event fund to see if it was enough. The other source that I would look at is, I would do projection on, parks, recreation, general fund to see, are we potentially coming in underneath what we have budgeted that, that we could afford to transfer some funds in, into that fund or not, so. But I would definitely, if there's something that's supported, and especially if it's supported by a council member, I definitely am always looking for a solution and a way to fund those ideas. So.
Great. So it's not a hard no, it's a, can we think creatively about this?
Yeah, and so what really needs to be done, and it's like everything, is it's communication. I need to be communicated and know what the request is, what the need is, what's the justification for it, and that I hopefully we have a new city council. I think definitely in the past one, I think it's still going strong. I developed a pretty good rapport with our city council, and so they definitely will want to hear my recommendation for it. But I always try to. I like to solve things and make things happen, especially when they benefit the community. So.
Wonderful.
Great.
I like to clarify that by saying, if you're going to amend it, it's the who, what, when, where, why, and how are you going to put on this event. You bring that to council. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to have a lot of questions. You present it all, and then from there,
Got it.
it's typically voted upon.
Wow, she's good too. That's it.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions regarding the budget or our finances? No? Okay, great. Thank you.
I would just like to say, once again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be here. Absolutely agree with you that this should be at least on an annual basis, but you will see again as we move through the budget process, so your voice is heard in that process part to it. So I thank you very, very, very much for your service, and if there's any questions anytime, either email me or give me a phone call, and I'll be glad to get back to you. Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
Okay, next item is actually, would you like to skip back to the public?
That's what I was,
Thank you.
if nobody objects, she drove down from Hugo, so ran a little
goodness.
late.
I-
Can we, we'll open it back up to the public for,
Yes, does anybody have any objections about that? Okay, great. Why don't you can join us up here.
Oh, it's okay.
It happens.
Born and raised here, I'd know to get here early enough. So, my name is Christy Spears, and I was born and raised here in North St. Paul, 2840 North First Street. My parents lived in a house there for about 50 years. And the reason why I'm here is I'm asking if we can put up a little library in one of your parks here in North St. Paul. My mom passed away in November, and at her funeral, we had collected a lot of books, and we collected money for a little library. She was a librarian at elementary school, and we were just, and my sister and I, we're not located at a place where it's very good to have one in our yard, but I have done some research with the Little Library Foundation, and they said you could do it in parks, so it's just a question of where and when and if I can. It's all paid for. We collected, like I said, about 100 books. We have enough money for the shed to be built, and then just wondering if we could do that in one of the parks. One of the locations I have here, I was gonna maybe send an email to you, and then I have better pictures. But Tower Park, we thought that was a good place for a lot of kids, a lot of community, where it would be easy access for a lot of families to get some books for kids. And I took some pictures, locations where I thought it might be good. There's that little new playground there. I thought maybe by there. If that wouldn't work, Polar Park, that was just down the road from my house. There's a place right on Shawnee that's right as you enter in the park, by some trees there, possibly doing that. So we were just kind of wondering, and also they say one of the questions is, what if my sister moved, what if I moved? We have plenty of people that would look after this library. We have a second generation that are in their 20s. They would be able to keep on the upkeep. We have a really good relationship with St. Mark's. My parents have been members there for 50 years. We were going to try and get some of those committees too to check on it once in a while, make sure it's restocked, and they would be able to help with the upkeep of it. So thank you for your consideration in that. I know you have to meet about that, and I have just a few copies of my letter here, just a little more background as to what, and then this is the shed, and has some dimensions too. I don't know if there's regulations, I know there's zoning and all that. That's just one copy of that. Yeah, and it's just a form one. We're not doing anything fancy and big. It's just the one that's on that sheet right there, so.
Thank you.
Questions?
I have a question. Ingrid, do you want to go first?
Sure. I've been on the park board for quite some time, and this actually came up many years ago, and I think it was the first time I had ever heard of a little library, little free library, I think is how and at the time, I think somebody was proposing putting one in Housie. Sarah, were you on the board? Oh, okay. Wow. I can't believe I'm that. I've been on it that long. Okay, oldest one here. And at the time, I was just kind of like, oh, this is such a cool idea. But through the discussion, we realized we couldn't really do it at that point anyway. It's not the same committee, so, but it had to do with being able to control it and being able to control what went into it, how we wouldn't want, if it's on city property, what if somebody puts something in there that doesn't reflect well on the library, your mom's memory, the city? So that was what I recall from that discussion, and that was many years ago, but I do feel, I've always felt like, oh, these libraries are so cool. And I've never seen anything not good in any of them. But I've always felt like, wow, it's kind of taking a risk because it's free to, people can put things in and take things out as they want to. And it'd be great if everybody was, had the right, had the, so that it makes the person who owns the free library a little vulnerable, I think. And then I think at the time, the city was like, oh no, we can't do that because, and I don't know, maybe there are rules about it. You were saying you researched it a little bit and you did see that there were some public parks that had them?
Yes.
I've seen them in public parks.
You have, okay. And that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to just kind of throw that out there. That would be the sort of the dark side of having one.
Yes, they had a PowerPoint that had for people that were going to start, because it would be our first one. And they said, there might be some vandalism, and it's, think of it as taking care of your house and, making sure you go back and you check it. And we know that something like that might happen. We know that, but we feel like it's worth the risk of just trying to do that with them. So.
I helped put one in at a different playground
Oh, you did?
in St. Paul, yeah.
And do you know, was it easy to maintain? Were there any problems or
I
anything?
don't I'm not part of the maintenance, but the family who built the playground maintains the little library, and they built it to match the playground, which was really cool.
Oh,
So it
cool.
just kind of fits in. And I don't think they have issues with it. They're in a lower income area, and it's really helpful for the community to have access to those books, especially when kids are already playing on the playground anyways. But that was the city of St. Paul, and they didn't have an issue with it. And they're a much bigger city in Parkport than us, so I don't know, but I don't have any questions. Is more for.
They did. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. They did say we could have like an open house, or even, I don't know if you can just do flyers around there, and maybe we were hoping to have like a connection right in that neighborhood. Like, let's meet a bunch of people, have a little just small event, and we're all there on a weekend, and then hopefully getting a connection, somebody in the neighborhood, like they could call us and say, oh, something immediately. But I'm, we plan on being there weekly, once a week to check on it between all my family members that are in the area. So, so that's what we're thinking for that.
No, go ahead.
You mentioned that you have a lot of connections at St. Mark's. Have you considered putting it at St. Mark's?
We were wondering about that too. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am pro little library. I've built over 20 of them. They're a huge asset to the community. I do wonder about the risk part, just because recently our city of North St. Paul has been really risk averse. And so if you were to put it at St. Mark's, that's a dedicated group of people who could check on it weekly. And that is private land, right? Private land. So you would just need to get approval from the church. You wouldn't even need to go through the city process, and you could put it there. Okay. That would be my personal recommendation. We definitely can talk to the city. I think it's worth asking the question. But if we cannot, if I were you, I would talk to the church.
All right. Sounds good.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments?
We have one at the Historical Society, and we have had trouble with it, not with people, but the way it was constructed. And I had new doors made on it, and those got wrecked, and now I just had somebody repair it. But the wind takes it, so you really have to have somebody watching them all the time, because more than once the doors blew open and all the books got wet. Now, if it was at our house, at your house, you would see that every day. At the museum, it's been kind of a pain. But
They recommended having a magnet doors
Yeah.
or something that would help, a little stronger magnet. So we're going to look into that too.
I would really look at the ones around that are really nice and solid.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought ours was solid as a rock because of who made it. It's been a nightmare.
Yeah.
That was going to be my only suggestion is the one we had built at the other park, the playground was built out of the composite, the plastic wood, kind of like Janie's playground in North St. Paul. And that wood is pretty indestructible by a lot of, so when we were building that one, the one suggestion was avoid wood because playgrounds are, anywhere near a playground can be
Yeah.
arson hazard is what I'm trying to say. So the composite would last longer. And my only other thought would be I'm very pro. I think that I'm actually the person I think who runs that park. That park gets a lot of traffic from kids between the schools, between the high school and elementary school. And I think it's a great location. My only other thought would be like as if it could match the playground, so it would just kind of blend in a little nicer. Or blend into whatever the color of the pergola is or something so that it doesn't, if it's just wood, it's going to kind of stand out. Like my only thought would be, let's make it blend so it kind of looks like it belongs with the environment.
There is a composite one at North Presbyterian Church that looks,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it looks really nice.
Are we even allowed to say yes or no to, I'm just wondering if we even have the authority.
Not yet.
Okay.
Public, they can bring something, we'll put it on the agenda to discuss, and then you can vote on it next month.
Okay, next month. Okay. Maybe could you come back to us by then and say, okay, the park is what means something to us. And then we can have it on the agenda either way. And then,
Or you could send us an email if you don't want to make the trip. Just, bring this information back to your family and the group that is working on this and say, we for sure really want to have it in a park or, just kind of pick the location. And then when we have that discussion, we'll have that information.
We're pretty, we're for sure though, because we do know the risks of like the vandalism and that, and so we just think it's worth a try, and then possibly going to St. Mark's next. But I feel like that area would be a great place, and we were even hoping to do like events there, or just not super big, but just our family. We're all teachers, so
Yeah.
we'd have stuff for the kids to do, or just
I'd
all
love
the
that some
community.
attention's getting put at Tower with people. So I think that's.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Well, if I'm hearing you correctly, you'd like us to talk about this and make a vote and get more information to see if these two locations would work. And if for some reason we aren't able to do that, then we can let you know and maybe offer some other recommendations about spots to put it. Sure. Does that sound fair?
That sounds great.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Could I just make a comment?
Absolutely.
A historical perspective, and if you all know this, I'm sorry I'll bore you with this, but did you know that the Little Free Library started in North St. Paul?
No.
Yes, Herb Patridge was the chief of police here forever. His daughter June ended up being a school teacher, and she married Dr. Bowl, Richard Bowl, and their son, I think his name was Todd, now I might be wrong, put up a library on his street in honor of his mother. And this was, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, and it was so successful. That's what he did for a living, was administer this organization that became international.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
No. I mean, well,
Is it
you did.
still up?
Pardon me?
Is the first one still up?
I don't know. Todd unfortunately died, and so I don't know anything about what happened with his family.
Well, now we'll really push for your local library, 'cause that has a
Yeah.
really cool historical component.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I believe we are back to the city email update under commission business.
Everybody's had a chance to get that set up. What I wanted to talk about is, I know everybody has a lot of emails that they're checking. So just wanted to get some ideas on if I email on one certain day that it'll work, everybody checks it. You can email me anytime from that email, but I just wanted to try and make it easier so you guys aren't going in there every day just to see nothing.
Did I ask last time, are we able to add it to like our phone email? Like, or is it encrypted where we have to log in through the website every time to check it?
Not through the website. We were looking at, there were three ways. You could go to the Microsoft website, go from there. There is an app, or through the northstpaul.org website.
I tried to add it on my mail app on my iPhone and I couldn't, but I downloaded the Outlook app. And then you can set it to send you a notification when you get a new email in there. I did it, I can show you, I just did it before the meeting started.
Got it.
So maybe this is a question for you. So if I have an Outlook email, that's my main email. This is also an Outlook email. Is there a way for me to have a setting? Good. That if I get an email through the city one, it'll notify me.
You just add another account to your app, which we can look at.
We
after
can
the
look at
meeting.
that. Okay. Thank you. Nice.
Do I need to just do one day thing, or does everybody think they're gonna be able to check it every day, or what is everybody thinking? I'm looking right at you, Artie.
You just tell me what day.
Okay. I will send, if I need to email you, I will send it to you on Monday.
That seems
For
reasonable.
sure, check it on Monday, but email me anytime. Okay.
And then anyone, like, for example, contacting bands for the Concert in the Park series, blah, 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 that has to come from the city email? Or is this more, because, I mean, am I allowed to reach out from my email to somebody and go, hey, we have this,
It is not required. The way the lawyer was explaining it, if you, very highly recommend.
highly recommended?
If at any time there's data requests or concerns, or you wanna do a history on something and it's coming out of your personal email, we'll have to check all your personal email and the city email.
Oh,
We want it all in the city email.
my personal
and
email is
there's no
boring.
question.
Right, but just for
Yeah.
for practice, reading between the lines, the answer is
Yes.
yes. You
Yes.
need to use your city
Yes,
email.
use the city
for city
email.
business. Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Any other email conversations that we want to have?
Just
Great.
so y'all know, this last email that Jill sent, that was exclusively for me. I was the only one who read that. She was just being super nice. I think everyone's done it, but
Just
I had
maybe.
not done it. She
Yeah,
was
yeah.
being nice.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and Jill did let us know that this past email, the agenda was the last time she will email your
Yes.
personal email address.
Right.
So we, as adults and human beings with access to the internet, can and are now being asked to use this email,
Yep.
and our training wheels are off.
All right.
It doesn't matter.
General Parks and Rec email that all of them, the council has, that all of them will receive an email.
We can, we do have park rentals at northstpaul.org.
I don't want those
But
emails.
if they have a specific question for the entire team here, that they can email everyone with you included?
I would jump
They
in.
should not.
Yeah, they should not because of the open meetings,
Oh, yeah.
the open meeting issue. If you have anybody communicating with the rest of you, then it looks like it's a meeting.
Correct. City council and city manager all has one specific email. It's not email, but we're all linked.
It's a group, it's a distribution group. We have that for all of the commissions as well.
Okay.
But it's primarily intended for staff to email you as opposed to you emailing each other.
Correct. So that's
Yep.
where if you get an email from that, you can't respond to all because of the open meeting law.
Oh.
Correct.
Are you talking about like that email would be given to the public to
It would be
communicate with us?
Yeah, so it'd be a link on there on your website that you can click on Parks and Recreation. You can name it whatever you want. Parks and Commission. It would go to all of you guys. You guys just can't reply to all.
And we,
Oh, are you saying that that exists for city council?
Yes, it does.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know.
I don't think you do have that. No, I mean them.
That's why I asked, because
I don't think we have one on the website.
it would be nice if you guys did too, just for the sake of, if I came to you as a
Yeah.
And instead of emailing just Sarah, then everybody has it and you're aware of it and you can talk.
What if we all reply to this person when they get confused? Or is that not what we're talking
So
about?
it's like it's like a relay, right? So the email goes into this email box, and then from that email box, it independently emails all of us that same email. So we aren't managing a group email, it's alerting us that we have that information.
So, and then Jill would be added onto this email as a city representative. You wouldn't reply, nobody on this commission would reply to all, but Jill's aware of it, so it can be placed on the agenda and or discussed amongst whomever needs to be discussed.
That would take work off of your plate, but.
I will look for that email.
Okay.
Not aware that exists, but we'll
Yeah,
look on the
it's
website.
It's a distribution list,
Yeah,
essentially, is what
yeah.
Carrie
I don't know if
said.
that's on
So
the
if you guys go under city council, you'll see under all of our names, there's a line item
gonna
for
look at
city council and city manager.
Okay.
I would think you would even want to make that a cannot reply,
Right.
I don't know how ours is.
because that's possible.
It's just more of like a FYI, like the community is saying this, instead of what we're doing now where the community has to find one of us and message us on Facebook and say, I hate this, please bring it to your meeting, and then we bring it to the meeting.
Theoretically, that's
See,
happened. Just
hypothetically,
hypothetically
that has
speaking,
happened,
yeah.
yes.
Well, with Jill representing the city on behalf of us, so as council and as the mayor, we have to let Brian know of emails that we get. So that's why this distribution list was created, instead of all of us sending an email to Brian, he's on it and that's good.
Okay, so we are going to come back to that next month and find out more information.
Okay.
Okay? Great. Okay, can we wrap up the email conversation?
Yes.
She's so spicy. Okay. Okay, well, let's talk about the mural.
Yeah, what? Can we talk about this? I don't
mural
know
at
anything
Silver
about
Lake.
this.
Art and Culture wanted me to let you know about a mural. They are planning on painting on the restrooms because they are doing some renovation updates to the Silver Lake restrooms, and they thought if they're gonna paint them, why not put a mural on it?
Where? Like which wall? Which?
I don't know which one.
Well, there's only one restroom building, so you don't know which wall.
I don't know which wall. I would,
Probably the
thinking it's the
facing
one that's gonna be right on, is it 19?
Right on 19th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the first I've heard of it, so. But I did miss the last meeting, so maybe it was just, oh,
They had just talked about it.
Can you tell I feel very,
Kind of an FYI.
that's my
So
park.
The other thing we thought was like, well, if you see any other places, because they're kind of thinking the smaller ones, they're lower budget, just, I mean, if you see anything around town that you think might be good for a mural, let them know.
Yeah, are they gonna, do you know if they're gonna bring it up with the public?
They do a lot of outreach like that even the electrical box.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I would think, yeah, it's just kind of the starting process. They wanted to just let you guys know.
Got it.
Might be where they're gonna be.
Who's doing it?
I'm just, okay.
Art and Culture.
Okay.
I'm just thinking out loud. And you can tell I feel a little possessive of that park since I'm the representative, and that's my park. It's the one I represent. But I'm just thinking, I always think of neighbors, whether we're putting in a pickleball court or something. I always try to anticipate the comments we're going to get from the neighbors. So I worry about things like noise. And then when something goes into a park, I always think, what is the sight line? How will that affect someone's view to the lake? When we put in the bathroom over by the east side of the park, the East Park, we put in a porta potty, but no one wants to look at, big chunk of plastic, so we created this wooden enclosure for it. That was really important to me, to not mar the sight lines of somebody's home to the lake. So this, I just have a little bit of concern that if the mural is on 19th, it might be very cool. But what if it's red and white or really brightly colored, and suddenly the resident who is on 19th, who faces the lake and just kind of looks over the bathroom building, is now staring at a super colorful mural instead of being able to look beyond it? Because right now it's like the color of that wall. It's very,
I think in the beginning process, I think there's two things that can bring your concerns to them, like
Yeah.
a different wall, or at least be, aware of what they're putting on there. Or you could actually probably talk to.
yeah, I should probably talk to,
I think that's a fair statement. I mean, I don't know that you want something that's like a circus when you're talking about a park. Like, it should be probably a natural type mural or something of that, like, or else it feels off.
well, and if it's on the path side, then maybe it's not an issue at all, because it's just, it might be very interesting to walk by that, and, there are doors on that wall, so I kind of doubt that it's on that wall.
Or
But I'm
the
thinking,
door facing, yeah, the door.
but, I mean, so maybe where they're thinking is not even a problem for neighbors, but that's one of my biggest considerations when anything goes into any park. I think, how is it affecting the residents and their view of the lake or their view of something? So I should talk to whom about this?
I'll probably
Tom?
give your name to Sarah. I'm not sure exactly who's working on the mural portion of it. So it may be Tom, or do you know offhand who it is?
Well, I think that we can try to summarize the comments that you have provided and make sure that they're given to Sarah to pass on to the Art and Culture Commission.
Yeah, just concerned about neighbors' sightlines to the lake
Yeah.
and
I think you've really summarized it really well
Okay.
and provided some options
okay,
for them to consider.
yeah.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Since this is a new partnership with the Arts Commission and they're a newly formed commission, what does has how we are interacting with each other and impacting each other in the work that we're doing, is there a plan? Is there a plan around that, basically? Because I imagine that this will not be the first discussion that we have about a mural. And so what is the procedure, around that?
Can I jump in? I'm
Yes.
assuming there is no plan. I'm not entirely sure what the correct answer is, but I'm going to go with my experience with Planning Commission and the Economic Development Authority. At one point in time, they would have joint meetings, and those were quarterly, and that was kind of a set schedule until recently when it was determined that it wasn't necessary any longer. But that's something that you could consider. They don't have to be quarterly. They don't have to be necessarily scheduled on a regular basis. But it could be, hey, we have a project that we want to work on jointly. Let's plan to put this joint meeting out there.
Yeah, definitely. My question is more around, is what the Arts Commission wants to put into the parks up to the Arts Commission? Or do we get a say in it? Or is it ultimately just city council's call?
These are tough ones. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This is new territory for me. But I believe that just the fact that they're including you in the conversation means that they recognize that the parks are your purview, and they're looking for guidance from this group and hopefully your blessing. And then I'm assuming, I don't know 100% what the process beyond that is. If it is needed by council, I don't know if we need their action.
Letter would need to be approved by council on that end. I mean, I can't see them just going up and painting a mural. I mean, there's gonna have to be a design that's approved. So there'll be a process.
And perhaps some community input.
Right.
One would,
That's pretty
yeah,
much what they're doing right now with the wraps,
yeah,
is they're getting some community input with that.
with the wraps.
They're
What's that?
wrapping the electrical boxes with graphics,
Oh,
and they're gathering community input on what designs they'd like.
oh,
Great.
It's currently on Facebook.
Yes. I, if we can, figure that out, figure out what that's gonna look like before we get into a situation where we need to know what that's gonna look like, just so everybody is on the same page. I think that would benefit all of us.
I think I'm just going to ditto that because I think there's been a lot of things that have happened in the parks that have gone through like public. A good example is park maintenance decided that they wanted to put concrete borders around our volleyball courts, and no one on the park commission was ever told. If we had, we would have said absolutely not. Like, that's a dangerous idea. It may look nice, but it's not.
Yeah.
And we were really upset about that, and we thought that should have come through us because that was doing something to our parks. I would consider art the same way. We are the experts of our parks, and we know like the feedback from the community and things. Some people on this commission have been on here for a very long time and know things that the city or residents may not be okay with. Ingrid's a great example. She's heard every complaint about Silver Lake. So when she says this, she's saying it because she's had to take the brunt of like a lot of comments from people. So I would just piggyback what they're saying is I think it's wonderful. I'm really excited about it. But I think if the process goes where this is like skipping over this commission and things are going in the park, like the concrete barrier on the volleyball court that still makes me angry every time I see it. That was like $7,000. I mean, anyways. So I just think a process would be great. Yeah, and I think we had discussed that with like the park maintenance stuff as well when they're doing enhancements or stuff to the playgrounds and stuff. But I do think, I think that should be run by us if it's not just a fix and replace. Like a swing broke, they're fixing it. We don't need to know that. But, you know, if we're like, hey, we're taking this playground and we're going to add 15 things, well, okay, we should really know about that or whatever. Same with art.
Is there a chance that maybe we could have Ron come and talk to this commission in regards to just the cleanup, anything like that? I think that might be a good idea, is have him. Because it is really seasonal. Yeah. So quarterly would. Especially with the new seasonal employees coming on, this might be a good opportunity to have
Or the issues they're seeing. I mean, what would be great for me to know is like, hey, this swing stinks and we're having to replace it every year. We don't always see that.
Right.
I know like the frog broke again at Casey Lake, and I'm not sure whether they fix that. But if that's becoming an issue, then we should know that, and we shouldn't put that in other parks. You know what I mean? Like, we can
Right.
fix it,
Yeah.
but if we're not aware of that, then we're going to go build another playground, and we're going to be putting
Another
stuff in that we
frog.
think
Yeah.
kids like. And if the frog keeps breaking, well, we shouldn't put in another.
Yeah, a
Sorry,
little
those little
two-way.
those little spring things.
Yeah.
Well, and the same thing goes with vandalism. If there's any vandalism at the park, how do we work together to get that removed?
Well, and usually what happens is the people who are like representing that park or kind of oversee that park send pictures of the graffiti to Jill when we see it. Jill lets Public Works know, and then it gets taken care of. Or a community member reaches out to us, and then
And I'll tell you before I even considering being on council, at Northwest Park, there was so much tacky,
yeah, profane.
profane Sharpie. I went up there with my daughters and we removed all of it.
Where was that?
Because they this was many years
Oh,
ago.
oh,
Up at Northwoods.
Oh.
But we went up there and we just removed it. I Googled how do you remove it, this profane language off of park stuff, and we just went up there with swabs and alcohol and it removed it. But I didn't even think twice about contacting. I just did it all myself to do it.
yeah.
Better to ask forgiveness.
But that's exactly it. And,
Yeah.
I mean, how do you ask if you don't know it was removed, right? So I think it would be wise to have Ron come up and create a presentation just indicating this is the plans for the summer. What do you have any more input, and what would you like to see?
Right.
Especially as we're running into a busy season.
Well, and I would say too, it's good for it's good for Public Works because, like Sarah was saying, we don't want to put things in the parks that make their jobs more difficult. So, for example, the Little Free Library. What if we approve that and they're like, and if I remember correctly, I do think Public Works was like, we have to mow around it. We might knock it over. I feel like there might have been a maintenance aspect from the city's perspective that they weren't willing to, do either. So it's a two-way street. So it would be nice for Ron to be able to say to us, by the way, this makes our job easier and this makes our job more difficult. You know, that's a good thing to know. So, in the spirit of cooperation would be good.
So, old business, we don't have anything listed. Does anybody have anything old business that they want to discuss?
The park cleanup happened. I had to go out of town, I'm sorry, for this past weekend, so I know the Silver Lake one must have happened. And what's great is I think the city removed all those falling apart, those things that went around the garbage cans. They were wooden. It was somebody's project from about 20 years ago, and they were all falling apart. And I noticed they're all gone. So, does everybody know? Did the cleanup go well? I was called out of town suddenly.
Hear anything from, because I was thinking, had a few calls from Sharon, just delivering bags and the sign and stuff. I hadn't heard if it had gone either way, but when I drove into work, I did see lots of piles along Division, so
Okay.
it looked good.
Yeah, but were other parks involved too?
I didn't
Like-
even know it was happening.
See, I didn't know it was happening until I drove past Casey. I'm like, there's parks cleanup? Like, they didn't tell us. We used to be notified of this, and we would usually participate and go to the park that we worked on. This kind of goes back to, I feel like some things get lost in communication in the shuffle. And again, if it's something happening at our parks, it would be really nice to at least get an email and be like, hey, this, and I know that the high school kind of orchestrated it a lot. They were really involved with it, but they would go to Casey, and I saw the sign, like, I think it was still up after the cleanup. I was like, oh, I wasn't doing it. I would have helped. I didn't know, like, and then I'm like, how do I not know I'm on the park board?
I know.
I've been at every meeting. Like,
This one is done by the homeowners association out there.
it was on the Casey Lake sign, though. It said, yeah.
The Silver
Didn't
Lake
say- It
one,
didn't say Silver Lake. It implied that it was at Casey Lake. Like, the sign said spring cleanup April 20th. I'm like, well, if it's on this sign, it doesn't say a park. I'm assuming that's Casey Lake.
that's confusing, actually.
Silver. It was just Silver Lake.
Because it used to be like
Was it
Casey,
only?
Silver.
Yeah.
Okay,
There was not a general
Southwood.
park cleanup, correct? It was just Silver Lake.
it was, okay, so that was initiated by the lake.
Silver Lake Improvement Association.
Yeah, but we used to have a cooperative citywide parks
Yeah.
cleanup.
That's what I thought it was.
day.
That's why I was like, how do I not know about this?
So let's bring that back, because that's a wonderful community, that's a way to get kids involved in the parks. It's just bring that back.
I think that was part of the Environmental Commission,
Oh, which is no longer,
which
okay,
is no longer.
that's why.
And then Keith had all these connections with the high school. So we
Right,
had the track teams and
Yep.
various.
Okay, so we'll put that on our
Things to do in the future.
things to do, and that will be future us's problem.
Yes.
Future us.
Okay, so reports from staff, comprehensive park and open space plan.
That's from me. I wanted to put this out there. It kind of ties into Dan's conversation about budgeting and also into the park improvement plan that was approved last year. That document had a lot of recommendations, but one of the key ones that I really am taking notice of is the fact that the city really needs a comprehensive plan for the parks and open space and trails system. There was recommendations about specific improvements, but there wasn't a lot of needs analysis that was put into that document, other than some things are, past their useful life. But what we are missing is the public outreach component. So I would like to take some time this year and work on that document, and over the course of the next few months, start doing a public outreach. So that would include a citywide survey, and Jill and I have been trying to figure out the most cost-effective way to kind of reach everybody that we can. And then in addition to that, Carrie Erpenbach and I were kind of try to formulate a way to have some activities that we could set up, maybe tables at the park events and activities that you've got on, like the Music in the Park and the car show event. So I just wanted that to be on your radar, like what the scope of work is going to look like is still sort of being developed as I have time. We don't really have any funding to hire a consultant for this, and I think that it's actually probably a good idea to do it in-house, because it gives us, as a department in combination with Public Works, kind of the ability to really get to know our system and how the budgeting process is built into how do we plan for improvements. And I think that's all going to be very beneficial as we kind of grow up as a department. We're kind of having our little growing pains right now as we're getting to know the system and getting to know each other and how the different departments work together. And so that's the plan. So I wanted to bring that to your attention.
I love community engagement. I think it's always exciting. We've done a lot of it in the past where we show up at a park and get a lot of feedback. My only ask as you go to do this is it's a broad outreach to be able to ask about parks in general, because some people are thinking about the Housie Park they live across from, and then some people are thinking about pickleball. I think however you guys spin this or decide to do it, whether it's directional towards like city parks or regional parks, what I would really love to know is we are still gauging on that park plan is about the downtown park and what people would want to see there, and whether that's a question or like an open answer that's very specific to downtown. I think if we are reaching out to people and we're in these like novice stages of beginning to plan what that should be and where it should go, it would be really nice to know what people would actually want to see down there. Is it play structure? Is it not? Is it something else? We just don't know.
Right.
But I know that if it goes broad, then people aren't going to answer specifically about that. But I think it'd be good to at least have a couple questions directed.
Yeah.
towards if there was a downtown park, what would you want to see there? Something like that.
I think that's good feedback. So in addition to the survey, which could be, broad, what do you love about the park system? What's missing? What keeps you coming back? We can have like maybe activities that are focused on your park or future parks. What do we want to see at your neighborhood park specifically? Because I just don't know that we have all the information. We don't know what the people want. That's how I feel, at least. So I think this is a good opportunity to get a sense of where the citizens want to invest their tax dollars in the park
And
system.
Sarah, you're asking specifically if some questions about a downtown park could be included.
And
That's what
within
you're
like a
asking, right?
survey. I love the idea of like, what's your neighborhood park? What would you like to see there? I live next to a neighborhood park that we never go to because it's too wimpy for my kids, and I hate that. So now I have no park that I go to, and I find myself not going to parks that much, which makes me really sad because I don't like to get in my car and drive. But if you asked me, I'd write down what park it was, and I'd say, actually, you know what would work there? Like this, that, or the other. Like, so I like that idea because then everyone's park is going to get something. You say, oh, Tower Park, I never thought about that. But yeah, let's, or whatever.
So park specific.
I think maybe if it's like a write-in option where someone could say, what's your neighborhood park? What would you like to see there? Because then people are going to probably feel a little bit more passionate and probably be more willing to give you, because if you live near a park, you're probably going to have thoughts about it. And that's what we want to hear.
And what I always think too is we're a bunch of adults making decisions about play stuff that really daycare providers know what works or what kids like. Kids know. And I always wonder, like on the survey, if there could be a kid response section or something, we could engage that younger generation too to provide their feedback, or a spot for your children to respond. Still the adult is filling out the survey, but like, please ask your kids what's missing from our parks or something. I just think they're the experts. And I would love to hear, like it is exciting, like Sarah said, community engagement is really exciting because sometimes we forget or we don't even think, and other people have great ideas about what could go into a park. So I would love to hear from the experts in some way.
That's a really great idea for two reasons that comes to mind. First, I had a couple of meetings with the school district yesterday and also Ramsey County Library. So I think the partnerships with those two organizations can get us to the smaller children to maybe have like a session in a classroom setting where we can kind of talk to them one-on-one.
Oh, yeah.
Or have something at the library display that people can interact with. The point about what do the children want, that reminds me of the park that just went up behind my house. My 7-year-old was like, why would they put a new playground in there without a slide.
Oh, right.
So that's a good point. I don't know why they would do that.
We did that for Janie's playground. That's like a requirement for that playground builder is they do a day with kids and they use that to influence like what kids want, which is why a lot of those things, like, which is why all those monkey bars are there, which is why
Why
big
it's
swing
so
thing.
amazing. Yeah.
And they do that for every park. And it's like they get a bunch of kids. Sometimes it's a school. Sometimes they like, we as volunteers went around the park and handed flyers for people. And they brought their kids and it was purely chaos. And there was like Capri Suns and it made it even crazier. But it was great because you had this kid who went on a tangent about like, it needs at least 3 slides or something, you know? It was like, we need castles or like, it was literally like built from the minds of kids and you can't always do that with every playground, but you certainly, you know, if you ask my son, he'd be like, where's the ninja stuff? I want to jump on stuff. And
Right.
Well,
So-
and it's important to keep in mind not only just playground parks, but dog parks potential.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's gonna.
that'll
get
come in the
whole
survey.
community.
They'll tell you dog parks. We can
Oh,
almost
for
do it.
sure.
And splash pad. Laura and I can almost tell you, like, I'll tell you.
Well, and this is just part of the comprehensive plan at the end of the day.
And I want to echo your kind of like growing pains conversation too, because like I don't think that all of us were in a place to create a comprehensive parks plan when we were asked to do so. And as we were going through the process, it was super frustrating. And at the end, we had to meet a deadline and we did it. And we all, like this commission also for a long time just met formally in parks at like picnic tables, and now we're sitting in the city council seats. And so like everything that we have been used to is now becoming much more formal and has processes built into it. And I think that's just something that we all are learning to be a part of, because a lot of us are passionate about parks and not city government necessarily. So like you all going through that, us going through that at the same time, and then coming together to like learn together and then come up with the best outcome, I think is what all of us, I'm speaking for all of us, that's what all of us are looking for as a commission.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And also the improvement plan that was put together, it has a lot of the background that is necessary. So it's not like we're throwing it out.
Oh, I didn't take that. I didn't take
Okay.
it that way. We just, I don't think any of us wanted to make that document. And then that was like a lot of our focus. And so we were all like, we think this is what we're supposed to do. So I'm glad that like that foundational knowledge is useful to you all. And I think all of us are on board with making sure that our parks fit what the community actually wants and needs to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And from my perspective, I'm looking forward to having a solid guidance document that we can look at annually that tells us this is what we prioritized for improvements. And that's what I'm going to be able to use when it comes CIP season every spring. So we'll have this comprehensive plan. It's going to have short, medium, and long-term implementation activities. We'll work within those within that framework as we can. Funding may not always be available from the city council perspective, but on the other hand, opportunities may arise that we hadn't anticipated. Grants might pop up that gives us an opportunity that we hadn't thought about before. So having that plan in place is going to be beneficial from that perspective, and also it's going to make us more fundable if there are grant opportunities to be had.
Great. Okay, Housie Park update.
I'll take that one too.
Okay.
So you may have already heard that the bids came in way higher than anticipated, and the budget wasn't there for that. So it's not going to happen this year. But however, there was one of those grant opportunities, and we were able to meet the deadline. And so if we are able to get funding, it'll be 50% of the project ask. And so we'll find out in June if we have that, and if so, we'll move forward with that for spring of 2024. Otherwise, we just have to increase our budget ask for next year as well.
Roughly to how much?
Was it like 380,000, something like that? Yeah, just in case. It was just exponentially greater than we had
It
anticipated,
was
and
like,
so
what
the,
did we say, 275 or something?
I think it was 230.
Okay.
Like if it comes in, if we ask for 250 and it comes in at 260, there's probably a way to make that work, but it was just so much higher than we expected.
Meanwhile, it just stays the same.
Correct. Yep. That question came up at City Council when they voted to reject the bids. He confirmed that it is still functional as a tennis court, so people can still play there.
Okay.
May I add, as a council member, we were really bummed.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's unfortunately just with the cost of it, we were all really just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for applying for that grant.
No problem.
I'm just gonna move us along because that is what it is. Event update. So music in the park.
I have 2 bands committed and contracts in and everything for the first one, which is the, I'm blanking on the name, the brass band, 60-piece. Brio Brass, who usually starts they're doing the June concert. And the July concert will be a kids. I kind of wanted to get a kids band. So they're called, I'm just blanking.
The Bazillions?
The Bazillions are going to be playing for the July concert, which will be really fun. They're funny and educational, but they have a lot of educational things, kind of like Schoolhouse Rock, if anybody remembers that. But for like a park setting, they have just a lot of really fun they like to engage the kids. So I think that'll be really fun to kind of hype that concert a bit. And get a lot of kids there. And a lot of kids playing at the park. I'm just really looking forward to that concert because I think it's going to be really fun. And I think also, even if a kid is just playing at the park, they'll just kind of filter on over when they hear this. So that's fun. And then Heather's uncle's band, Empty Pockets, so I'm keeping the June and the August bands the same. So I reached out because I hadn't heard back from the contact I had for Empty Pockets, I reached out to Heather today and said, hey, I'm trying to get your uncle's band. Can you help me? So she's looking into that. So I'm hoping they're available. If they're not, I will find a third
Are you
band.
looking for another band?
Well, only if the one that I've already asked for August says no. But you have somebody that,
I do have, has a folk band.
ooh, fun.
So I can
Okay,
ask him
I
if
will,
he'd be interested in something like that.
yeah,
But
that would,
That it's not
so that's the,
open, but maybe.
right.
I'll ask him.
That will be my plan B if these guys say no.
I'll ask him.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, that's it.
Food truck night. I'm responsible for that. I've done nothing on it.
We'll be able to start working on that soon because a lot of the vendor license are coming in for the car show, and that's usually what we start off with.
Mhm.
Get some of the vendors.
Great. And then Sarah shared the food truck Facebook group resource with me. So I will put that information out there too to see if other people are interested, or food trucks are interested and then want to do the licensing process.
Can you sell them a 2-for-1? Like they can come to the Autumn Art Festival and the thing. So if they pay that fee, they could go to both.
Yes, I will.
That's it. Two for one. People would love that.
Yes, for sure. Is there a date for food truck night?
July 26th.
Okay.
It's the same, well, and did we want to, it's the same night as our meeting, typically.
Yeah.
Oh, we've done that before.
Fine.
Yeah, it's okay because I just went over and you all met without me.
Yep.
So I will have more to report at the next meeting. Autumn Arts Fest.
Yeah, it's coming along. The one question that had arisen from our individual group was about potentially setting up a stage separate from the pergola underneath the building to separate space. So I have it on my list to go out and look for prices. Sorry, I just saw your email, so I haven't been able to check on that yet. But we were thinking about the Arts Commission just got feedback from the performers last year that that space wasn't good enough for like dancing and stuff because of the podiums. Like it wasn't big enough. And the setup made it hard. And so we thought a stage separate would actually give more space to other things that would be going on in the building, outside the building, the playground. It just wouldn't crowd everybody to one corner of the park. So trying to figure out the cost of a stage rental, probably one of those simple ones that's just on risers, that would be across the parking lot, where some of the vendors were set up last year. So that was going to go back to the budget because obviously we would have to spend budget to do something like that. So we don't have that cost yet, but that would be my one question is if the Arts Commission has no budget, so they can't really spend it, but if it's from this events budget, could we do that knowing that like this is one of the few kind of bigger community events we're doing, or could we use revenue from the art booths that they're paying? I think they weren't, so.
We can, well, and if you come back to us next meeting with a price
Yeah.
for what that would look like, we can bring it to council.
Yeah, that's my plan. So I'll have that for you into May.
Yeah, great.
The other thing we had talked about maybe spending money on was some artists that would be free. So like balloon artists or face painting or something like that. Face painting may not be the one, but like the balloon artists that we could pay the fee for. So it'd be free to the children that come versus making it a limitation so that some kids would have access if their parents have money and some don't. I actually personally think that's a really good way to spend our money so that we make these community events really accessible for everybody, not just the parents who have money, kids and parents who
I
have.
think the unknown that I wasn't sure about is, I did put some money in there for the band, but I'm not sure if you were still doing.
So we're not going to do the band because of Music in the Parks, the Newman's thing. What we are going to do is there'll be music from probably North High and other groups, but we're expanding kind of the performance arts to be what we're looking into now is like a professional like sidewalk chalk artist who can go and create things around the park, or like demonstration artists as well as performance groups. The performance groups would probably be a little bit of everything. We're talking to a Corinne dance group so look, like there's going to be kind of that entertainment, but we think having that stage offset from the playground and maybe the balloon art, like it will space. We have a lot of space in that park and we're just not using it well if we crowd everyone under that awning. And so I forget, it was the Indian dance group last year was like, I think they were constricted in the space they had because most people are used to a stage, which is more of a square layout, and we have so no band, so the money wouldn't go to a band, but we would like to use it for those other things. And this is where it gets a little dicey. So the Art Commission doesn't have money, technically, but we aren't spending any money. And it feels like, how cool would it be to have a ice sculpture artist or like someone doing that cool sidewalk chalk that kids could interact with, or kids could, a chalk by number, where someone,
that'd be
we
fun.
pay someone to create that for us, but then the kids fill it in, or.
That'd be fun.
So we're looking at things like that would cost money, but would be free and open to everybody, so.
Getting back to the stage, there is a stage that I used for the Splash for many years. City Public Works owned at that point anyway. We would have it delivered to the beach and we would put it together. It was all these platforms that were about this tall.
That'd be
And that's what we put the canopy on.
I know your stage was a little bit smaller than probably what we need for like
Probably.
a 20-person group, but if they have something
However,
like that-
it was big enough that, any day now, an entire band would set up and there would still be some room around it. So it's worth looking into
awesome to know,
as,
yeah.
A smaller
Starter,
group
yeah.
could. Yeah, as a small starter. And it was just something that came in, it was 6 or 8 sections, maybe 6 sections.
Well, even a secondary, like if we had an ice sculpture person, like we could
Right.
have them on a
you could-
smaller stage.
Right.
yeah.
So it could be sitting over in the Public Works building right now, these 6 sections of, they have short little legs on them, yeah. So,
Wonderful. Star Watch?
Lloyd has not communicated with me about that, and he's not here, so hopefully we'll have some news next month.
do we have a date for both of the Arts Festival and Star Watch?
Autumn Arts Festival is Saturday, September 16th.
Star Watch, I'm not sure. It's usually the end
Early
of
October. Always end of September.
Are you asking Star Watch?
Yeah.
I haven't received any contract from Mike Lynch, but I think it's the week of the 19th, 20th, or 21st in September.
Okay.
Oh,
When there.
great. Of September. Okay.
Okay. Are there any other reports from commissioners?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? Okay, we're gonna vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Right at 8 o'clock. Look at that.
Woo.